Hi, I'm Debra Parks, and I teach law at UBC, and I've been working on issues around imprisonment for about 20 years. And I guess I just wanted to say that the one thing that really struck me around this this film, and it's a very powerful film, and is the extent to which everything you saw there is based on a logic that is the same logic that fuels all incarceration and all forms of punishment in this country too. So you see, it's easy to see it as an extreme practice, but I think I'd be interested in talking a little bit more when I have time in a discussion if people are interested around the extent to which it's a continuum of state violence that you see enacted here and in many other forms.
Jay Aubrey, counsel with BC Civil Liberties.
Hello everyone, my name is Ashley Lexvold. I am a fourth-year criminology student at Kwantlen Polytechnic University. I also, for the last year, have been volunteering with Correctional Services of Canada, working with guys who are at halfway houses, you know, working into reintegrating back into society. And I've heard a lot of stories, you know, within my university as well as at these halfway houses. And yeah, I think this was a super powerful film, and I'm looking forward to discussing it.
Hi, I'm Jeff Shantz, and I'm a faculty member in the Criminology department at Kwantlen Polytechnic University. And I really think it's an important opportunity, and an opportunity that we don't have enough publicly to talk about issues of the prison system, which are typically held away purposefully, kept from sight. That's part of the purpose of it. And I hope that we have this opportunity, and I hope that this is shown and seen and provides a context for having that discussion, particularly about the inherent brutality of prisons themselves and the prison system itself, and the real role and nature of prisons, because prisons and our prison system and our criminal justice system as a whole doesn't do what it says it does. It isn't about protecting us, keeping us safe. It's not about violence and ending violence. It is violence. And in fact, you know, most of the sort of the public discussion is around, you know, this, you know, violence and keeping us safe. And most of the people who are processed through our criminal justice system are not processed for acts of violence, of physical bodily harm, right? Most of it's low-level property offenses, consumption offenses. You've ingested something and the state doesn't like that. It's administrative offenses, right? People accumulate tickets, sleep through a court date, warrant goes out, and they end up being imprisoned, incarcerated, right? So I hope that this provides an opportunity for thinking about the real role and nature of our prison system and our criminal justice system more broadly, which is, you know, is largely about a system of containment and regulation of poor people within a class society.
And now let's open it up for questions and comments from the audience. Please raise your hand and a runner will bring a microphone over to you. We'll do our best to maintain a speaker's order. Any questions? So for me, I saw a lot of parallels between this documentary and Blackfish. I'm not sure how many of you watched that, and it just got me thinking the whole way through about how those situations are so similar. We'd love to hear from you. Any comments and questions?
Yeah, interesting that you mention Blackfish and the containment of animals, non-human animals, and if anyone's interested, I saw Lisa Gunther was mentioned as one of in the credits there, and I don't know if people know Lisa's work, but I would just want to give a shout out to her work. Lisa is actually Canadian, but she was down at Vanderbilt for many years. She's just moved back to Canada. She's at Queen's University, some kind of Queen's Research Chair in Critical Prison Studies, and she's written a really great book called Solitary Confinement, Social Death and Its Afterlives, and it's a really important critical look at the, it's critical phenomenology. I'm not a philosopher myself, but that's the kind of disciplinary lens she brings to it. But it's all about the impact of isolation on animals, on humans, and also on non-human animals. And she has a whole chapter in there about the connections in terms of even the historical development of practices of isolation for humans and for non-human animals as well. And so it's actually a really, I think, important connection to make around this work as well.
One of the questions I have is, I've always been curious about what is at the very base of the idea of solitary confinement, like in terms of the law and lawmakers and their thinking. What is the so-called positive outcome, if you will, or intended outcome of solitary confinement, as opposed to typical confinement?
Yeah, so they say there's two different types of solitary confinement in federal prisons in Canada. There's administrative segregation and disciplinary segregation. So they say disciplinary segregation is to punish for a specific listed offense that the offender participates in or is alleged to have participated in inside the institution. And then the other type is administrative segregation, where they say it's non-punitive, it's not punishment, and they say it's for the safety and security of the institution and everyone in it. And so usually in terms of what, the judge found, that is totally contrary to what the actual experience of solitary confinement creates. It creates more violence, more dangerous people through the creation of mental illness or the exacerbation of mental illness as one way it happens. But what we know from experts who have studied this, and some of them testified at the trial, in reality, why people are being put in administrative segregation for showing mental health disruptions, causing disruptions to the safety and security of the institution by having a mental illness or a disability, not having enough resources. She said basically, one of the experts who has studied this her entire career has said, and the judge accepted it as truth, is they're using it as a population control mechanism in the absence of appropriate tools, appropriate funding, if you think that the prison should be funded, appropriate sort of, management in terms of the way the buildings themselves are structured, so lack of doctors. So basically lack of resources and population management concerns is what gets you an administrative non-punitive segregation. Someone wants to add to that?
Yeah, I just say that when it comes to discussions around solitary too, one of the groups, and perhaps not surprisingly, that has really pushed back against ends to solitary have been the prison guards and prison guards associations. I have a hard time calling them unions as a member of the labor movement myself, but anyway, that specifically they use it as a tool for their own convenience in terms of management of prisoners, of management of people, right? And so it's part of these discussions too. When you talk about resources, oftentimes it's framed as an issue of staffing. They're understaffed and so forth and things like this, and they need more resources. Again, we in thinking about that, we should think about exactly, it's not an issue of understaffing. It's an issue of hyper-incarceration. It's of mass incarceration. You're imprisoning people for a range of mostly low-level offenses, oftentimes victimless offenses, offenses where no one has been harmed, and then you're calling for more resources to contain those people and saying, well, because of the large numbers of people that we have to deal with, we need to use these extraordinary measures. It's really a corrupt sort of argument.
And I would just add, so just building on what Jay said, so just in terms of in the film, they talked about people being sent to Red Onion for disciplinary reasons. In fact, the numbers in the Canadian context, last numbers I saw, it's over 80% of those in federal segregation are in for administrative segregation. So the
98%.
well, okay, I'm taking, Oh, okay. That's new. So it's even higher than I thought. I was taking out people who are in PC, but yeah. But anyways, it's very high, right? So it's very few are actually in for disciplinary because it's actually not what it's used for. It's used for population management. And the reality is that again, if you put people in cages, if you put people in a prison environment, people aren't going to cope well with that. It's not an environment in which people do heal or address the needs and the resources are provided to support them. It's just not, that's not what prison is about. It's about containment, it's about punishment. And so then people aren't going to do well. So the concern, I'm actually been a huge fan of using the courts in this way for some time, and I think it's really important. I do want to just say that what I think going forward in terms of these successes in the courts is thinking about the extent to which, when we advocate for limits on solitary confinement, I would say an end to any form of isolation, where's our end game, right? Because if you just say we want, and I'm not saying this is what BCCLA is arguing, because I think it's a bigger argument than that, but a lot of times when we think about this, it's like we just need to end segregation. This is the inhumane, torturous practice. But the problem is, if you end that, it's like a whack-a-mole game. There'll be new forms, not new or old or different, or other forms of punishment, use of what are called chemical restraints and various forms